Just started beginning installing the shields over the coils. Got two of them mounted. Third one I left off because I got to get the oscillator coil back on. Some of the leads were way too short, so I added a little bit of wire, about an inch, to those short leads. I'll put heat shrink over the soldered connection. Got the wires, the 1-inch wires, color coded so I know where they land on the oscillator coil. Beginning to land the wires onto the terminals of the oscillator coil. Doesn't look too hard. Made this little key here for myself as to which terminals, which colors land on which terminals as I go from starting from right going to the left. All the wires have been landed back onto the oscillator coil, ready for the shield to be installed over it. This plate here and this plate over here, they were both bent in, shorting out these sections of the tuner. So I just slightly bent those back so they weren't shorting anymore. I removed this plate coil again after moving the band switch, checking continuity of the leads going to this coil. I figured out that all of these three coils are in series as I switch in the I guess a little inductance to each of the plate coils. Coil leads have been reconnected to the coil terminals and the resistance measured of each coil. Here's a diagram of the top of the coil with the terminals numbered, and then a schematic of the coils with the terminals numbered, and then the resistance of each of the coils. The total doesn't matter, but the total resistance of the coil is also shown there. I decided not to reinstall these two 25 picofarad mica capacitors due to their size. They were located where these 22 picofarad capacitors have been installed. I wanted to leave room to access the band switch, and then also there's a nut that holds on the shield for the coil that I wanted to have access to in the future if I need to remove that coil again, or the shield over the coil. These 22 microfarad 450 volt caps are getting ready to be stuffed back into the copper cans on the radio chassis. I decided not to reinstall these two 25 picofarad mica capacitors due to their size. They were located where these 22 picofarad capacitors have been installed. I wanted to leave room to access the band switch, and then also there's a nut that holds on the shield for the coil that I wanted to have access to in the future if I need to remove that coil again, or the shield over the coil. These 22 microfarad 450 volt caps are getting ready to be stuffed back into the copper cans on the radio chassis. In the process of inspecting the volume control, remove one of the screws here. Here's the hardware. After opening up the volume control, sprayed some deoxit fader inside. Next I'll check the resistance. Make sure there's even resistance as I turn the control. Checking the first section of the volume control. It's around 500 k ohms. Turn the control here and see how it varies. Seems to be okay. We'll see how it performs when we're under test with the radio later. Overall resistance of the other section of the volume control looks like it's 2.5 meg. Now we'll test to see the varying resistance of the volume control for the other section. Seems to be nice and smooth. Again, we'll see how it operates in the radio later. I remove the tone control from the chassis. All the wires are still connected. I had to watch this terminal here, make sure it didn't break when I was removing the control due to the length of the shaft. So I just held this still and then pulled the shaft through the opening in the chassis. So now I'll open up the control, spray in some deoxit, and then check the resistance. The first section of the tone control is 300K, and here's varying through its range. Might be a little rough. See how it is when it performs in a radio. The second section of the tone control looks like it's 5 meg. I'll check the range of it. Seems pretty sensitive there, but it's moving pretty smoothly. Change it down one section. That seems pretty smooth. Didn't do that last test from the center tap. I'll check it from the center tap. See how it varies. Seems pretty smooth. Again, this is the tone control. Remove the cover to the Q relay. See, check the relay, make sure it's operating correctly. There's the Q relay. We'll clean it, make sure the contacts are making proper contact, and should be good to go. I'll probably test it with voltage, make sure it's latching correctly. As I suspected, the contacts for the Q relay are corroded, so I'll run some fine sandpaper, clean up the contacts, spray some contact cleaner, just clean all this up, get the corrosion off. It appears that someone bent this travel bar down here all the way, so the contact is making permanent contact and not opening up. So I'll bend that a little bit just to see if the contact will open up, make sure it toggles. I've cleaned the Q relay and bent the travel bar here up a little bit, so now the contact toggles. Check the resistances to make sure that the contact closes the circuit when the coil is energized. Cleaning the contacts with 1200 grit sandpaper. I've got the contacts cleaned on the relay. Seems to work fine now. On the left is the old Q relay. On the right is a new Struthers Dunn relay. Operates at 5 milliamps. The current on the 79 tube that operates the coil is 10 milliamps on the plate. And this coil fits perfectly inside of the cover that went over the old relay. I'll just glue that in place and have wire leads coming out. The antenna choke coil. The antenna choke coil mounted between the antenna post and chassis was missing. So I'm going to be installing this 29.3 ohm coil here that I had spare parts for. Joe Coaster measured the original on his Stratosphere and I measured 14 ohms. So I think this will be a good replacement. This is a used old stock shadow meter from a Zenith 12A58 that I'll install into the Zenith Stratosphere radio, because the one in it was missing all of the internal pieces of metal that deflect to cast the shadow. The belt on the Strat has been replaced with a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch rubber stock belt glued in the right spot so it provides the proper tension. Here are the two shadow boxes, one on the right from the Stratosphere, one on the left from a Zenith 12A58. The one on the left is slightly larger than the original Strat. It looks like it'll fit in there nicely. The shadow box has been installed. Wires have been trimmed back for termination. Install this choke here for the missing antenna choke. It's a coil I had on hand. The interstage transformers that Haybor rewound and reinstalled. One of them here and the other one here. Repairs have been made to the Stratosphere. Got it all set up, hooked up, ready for initial testing. The replacement shadow box has been installed and the wires terminated. May be hard to see in here, but I had this terminal this terminal below connected to this terminal. So when I removed the coil, it looked like they were connected, but the radio wasn't working, so I've separated the jumper connection between those two terminals, because I noticed there was a terminal on the band switch that had no wire going to it, so I connected this wire to that terminal. And we'll see if the radio is going to work now. There's a short in the cable harness from the amplifier to the radio chassis, so I'm going to be replacing that. I've got this 10 conductor 18 gauge cable, and I'm putting this cloth sheathing around it, 3/4 inch, slowly sliding it onto the cable. One end of the cable harness has been terminated to the terminal strip that connects to the radio chassis. This is a video of the color bands on the Stratosphere. First band is AM band, which is green. Second band, which is the police band, is orange. Next band is the lower shortwave band, which is yellow. The upper shortwave band is red. And then the ultra high frequency band is blue. Looks kind of white or gray.